We have a special guest today. This is the Ultimate Landscape CEO, but we have Desiree Bouchard, who's the second in command from Great Lakes Landscape Design, just outside of Detroit. And we also have Sean Baxter, who's an executive coach at our company, but also owns a landscape business where he has hired in a second in command. So we've got the second in command and the CEO, or if you will, the integrator and the visionary, where I'm questioning both of them, peppering similar questions at them, and you're getting different perspectives. Really, Desiree is the star here as we talk to her about her journey that she took from being an employee in the business, and she'll let you know how she started. And she rose up into the integrator position and all the challenges she's had to overcome. The business has grown very successfully under her leadership. And really, a second in command is the leader doer, if you will. And again, we contrast it with Sean's experience with his second in command. And so let's jump right in. I think you're really going to enjoy this show. And the reason we put this show on is we have a second in command peer group, as you know, and I'll talk about it in this podcast. And we're doing a kickoff. I think it's the third year. We're kicking it off this January. We've worked out the bugs, and it's a great peer group. If you are a second in command, overseeing at least 5 million, have some kind of infrastructure underneath you, you should email us and find out about this group. It's been awesome for Desiree, and you're going to learn again about her journey. And Sean, who is a coach in our business, he actually leads that second in command peer group. So lots of experience in this podcast. Here we go. Welcome to the Ultimate Landscape CEO podcast. Today's topic is about seconds in command, not the CEO, although we may poke fun a little bit at CEOs. And we have Desiree Bouchard and Sean Baxter. Desiree, welcome.
Thank you. Very excited.
Yes.
So Des, I have known you for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And we had Ivan on the podcast, your CEO, that we'll try not to make fun of, but we may a little bit here and there. We had him on the show, and he kind of gave us the whole history. And I mean, he's a great guy. I'm just making fun. But I stopped him right at the part where I was about to ask him about his second in command, because I knew I wanted to have you on the show at some point. So tell the audience who haven't heard Ivan, just a couple minutes about your company and your role.
Okay. So our company is Great Lakes Landscape Design. We are just north of Detroit in Michigan. I am the second in command, general manager, integrator, whichever term you use. I've been in this role for about 7 years. I would say probably fully operating in my role, not as long, probably 4 years. There was a definite transitional period. We were about 9 million last year, just under 9 million. And we are design, build, maintenance.
And you do commercial as well.
And we do commercial snow. Yep.
Yeah. And so, Sean, you are an executive coach in our organization. You have your own company where you have your own second in command. Just introduce yourself briefly on both roles.
Yeah, thank you, Jeffrey. I have the fortunate job of facilitating all these wonderful operations managers and general managers, and in some cases, divisional managers in our 2IC peer group, which is bringing together all these leaders and emerging leaders that can really relieve the stress of what is oftentimes the visionary, aka the owner of a lot of these businesses, the founder. In my own life and business, I founded a landscape design and build and maintain firm back in 2001 and grew it pretty consistently across the last 23 years, and found that having my own second in command and some struggles along the way have really propelled our ability to improve our business. The synergy between the visionary and the integrator.
Yeah. And so you're running our second in command peer group. You run a couple of our other owners peer groups, and you also coach 10, 11, 12 owners, or sometimes owners and seconds in command together to help them. And Des, you and I were working together with Ivan, your boss, at one point. But let me talk about you more personally. You started off as the marketing manager.
Yes.
And you're one of 3 now. I've just met the 3rd last week, marketing manager who just got promoted to becoming the integrator, second in command. What is it about this type of person that's in that role of marketing manager that makes them ready for integrator? Or is it just a coincidence?
So I'm not sure. For myself, I came in doing marketing and just some administrative stuff. And I just started seeing a lot of holes and processes that needed to be created. And so I just naturally started putting things in place before I was really in my role. I don't know how much it ties to the marketing, but that's kind of how it started for me. Was just, we were much smaller then. And as we were starting to grow, I was like, we need to tighten things up a little bit around here. And so that's how it started for me. It was before we started EOS. And it just naturally, I think, started the transition.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a coincidence, but I will say a good marketing manager has to get a lot of processes in place, has to juggle a lot of balls, has to watch the metrics. So it's like you're running your own little mini business. Again, if you're listening, don't go out and just promote your marketing manager to this position, but there must be something to it. And so you've been the second in command now at Great Lakes, you said, for 4 years?
So I technically have been an integrator for 7 years, but I feel like it took me a while to transition fully into where I felt like I was fully operating in my role.
So tell us about that journey. Like, what did you start out doing where Ivan only gave you a little bit of leash? And what challenge or what did you have to overcome to get his full buy-in?
So it was a journey. It was a definite journey. It started really we started implementing EOS. And that is what really, it gave us the structure that we didn't really have, like the organizational structure. We put all that in place, and it really gave us the holes we were missing, which integrator was a role we didn't have. We didn't really have any structure. We had an office manager and a designer. But Ivan, like you already know, I believe, went through an embezzlement. He didn't really trust. It took a while to gain his trust. Back then, he didn't travel a ton. He kind of had to have his thumb on everything. Even when I did anything marketing, like everything went through him. So I think just through the transition, which, like I said, took a couple years, I just started taking things off of his plate. I guess showing him that he could trust me, showing him that I was able to do the things that maybe only he had done. And then with the processes and just holding people accountable, that comes naturally to me, I think. A lot of people think that to hold people accountable, you need to be an asshole. I don't think that's necessarily the case. So just through holding people accountable and through the EOS, we're like, well, who can fill this role? And so it was me, and it was challenging because a lot of people pre-existed me. It was a new role that had never existed in the company. So to go from maybe direct reporting to someone else to being their direct reporting manager, and these people had been with the company for so long, seeing me in that position was its own challenge. Just, stopping the end around, people going directly to Ivan. That took a while. But yeah, that's kind of how it happened.
So did they vote you in? I know it's a terrible phraseology, but did the team say who could be the best integrator, or did Ivan come to you privately and talk about this?
It was a team decision, actually. It was a team decision. Pretty much everyone was on board. I think at the time there was one person who's no longer with the company that was not on board. But everyone kind of saw that I was doing things really that people weren't interested in doing, like creating processes and then making sure to see them through. So it was, the team pretty much had a consensus that it was going to be me.
So, Sean, you have a second in command, and so tell us that same process from your perspective, but regarding your second in command, how you came to bring this person on and trust them to have that role.
Well, I first brought on our general manager almost 10 years ago now, when we were a much smaller business, and I was a much younger guy without the emotional understanding of what it was I was trying to do. The goals then and now were the same. We just didn't really realize, in my mid-20s, I had no idea what the difference between an integrator and a visionary was. I just knew I needed some help in operations. So I had initially in 2013 hired Scott to be our really operations manager, to free me up to do sales all the time. And that worked really well for a couple of years. In fact, it worked so well that his position needed to continue to grow and he needed people to delegate to, but neither one of us saw it. And we hadn't yet figured out, how to delegate. And so what ended up happening is I sold a lot of work and he kept taking on more work. And, it didn't work. He ultimately moved on and went to a much larger firm and spent the better part of 5 years cutting his teeth as a branch manager within a very large organization. And he was very successful in that endeavor. And I went on growing the company without a second in command, which meant that we went every which way but straight as far as our vision and goals and alignment, right? And so I was very successful in growing the company, but it was held together with duct tape. And it kind of hit the breaking point a couple of years ago when we just, COVID was good to us, as it was for most design and build firms in the residential space. And we just couldn't grow anymore until we upgraded our software platforms and our processes and, everything that an integrator does. And so I was in a good position. Scott and I remained friends through all these years, and just on a whim, he took a job interview off in another state, and he came back and he was kind of disappointed at the cost of living and having to uproot his whole family. And I said, don't do any of that. Just come back, work with me. And so we linked back up, and only this time with the awareness that his skills were opposite of mine and the both of us could get farther faster together.
And
so
he also matured, did he not?
Both of us did. Yeah, I think he was probably more mature than I. He is a couple years older than I am, but emotionally matured more than I was back then. But, he just didn't have the trust or the team below him the first go around to delegate to. And that's very stressful. Then you become the everything. And he was the catch-all. I wasn't. I was having a great time, but he was. And that doesn't work either. And so this second time around, we really focused on putting a team beneath him so that he only had a limited amount of direct reports, but they were very effective people that were very trustworthy and able to go out and execute. And he was really able to just hold the plan together.
He was like Joseph from the Bible, who went off and got all these skills and then came back into the fold.
For sure. And I think he saw too that a lot of the things we were doing, even as a really small up and comer, were pretty far in advance of where he landed and what they were doing and the way they were doing things. And he took a lot of the things that we were working on to that firm, but that firm had private equity money, so they could take these ideas and really run with them. And he saw the good, the bad, and the ugly, and then brought it all back and said, okay, here's the 5 things we were really on the right track with, and here's some things that aren't going to work so well as we scale. And so we've had the benefit of that, and it's good. It's like we got the band back together.
That's awesome. Hey, so I have a question for both of you guys. a second in command, be it COO or general manager, in theory, shouldn't have any portfolio. In theory, now we know that's not true, and it might not even be ideal, right? There might be certain things, bank reconciliation. I'm just throwing that out there, but there might be certain things or a lot of things that you want them to do. But in theory, they have a clean enough plate that they can go anywhere to solve a problem. So how clean is each of your plates, Des and Sean? You're Scott, your second in command. Des, you want to go first?
Yeah. So my plate is not clean right now. It's not incredibly clean. We're actually kind of in a transitional period. I'm looking for an operations manager to take some of the production managers that report to me currently to kind of cut down on my direct reports. I'm a bit heavy right now with them. But yeah, so I'm working on some structural things here to clean my plate a little bit. So yeah, it's a process though. It's once I get that role though, I know the operations manager I can see it. Like I can see what that looks like. And I'm very excited for what we'll be able to do once we have that person in place.
I hate to ask an embarrassing question, but what the heck? And it's not personal at all. How many direct reports do you have now, and what are you really trying to get down to?
So right now I have 7.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, I had 8, and as of last week, now I'm down to 7. And I'm trying to get down. So once I get the operations manager, I will be down to only 5. No, 5. Yeah, 5.
5. Do you have a vision for how? You have a vision for, is 5 the end goal, or do you have a next, or is that an interim goal?
So 5 is it's kind of like an interim goal. Right now, there is some people who don't necessarily have like one of our client liaisons, and she's marketing support. So right now she works with me because she helps me with marketing. But yeah, ideally I get it down to sales manager, ops manager, CFO.
So there's looks like I have a bit of a tough connection here, but with this app we're using, it should sync us all perfectly.
Okay.
Des, what was my question? I had a great question for you. So did you keep marketing in your portfolio? Like, are you hands-on?
I am marketing right now. I am most of marketing. This has been a very, we've been exploring a lot with marketing this year, and I have definitely been managing that as well still. Yeah. I do have a couple people helping me, but I'm deciding the direction and still spearheading all the initiatives we do and right now. So, and I know I'll always have a hand in marketing, but as we grow, I'm looking forward to when we get to the point where it is time to bring in a marketing manager and what that looks like. But that I know is a few more years down the road, but it's in our future org chart. So
one last question I'm just curious about is, so what percentage of your week, month, year do you spend on marketing?
What percentage? That's a good question. Honestly, probably more this year than I ever have, even though it used to be a bigger part of my role. I'd say probably 20%.
Okay. It's not terrible. It's not terrible. And you can't ever fully let go. I think that's a mistake that some owners make. Oh, I'll hire a marketing person, company, and they'll solve all my problems. And that's never the case.
Yeah, it's something when we rebranded, I created our logo, designed our trucks, our uniforms, all. So Ivan and I know kind of how we want to be perceived and the directions we want to go. So it's something I think I'll always have a hand in marketing. It's also something I like. Like I like seeing the return. I like trying a new thing and seeing what happens. But yeah, eventually it'll be A little less.
Yeah. So Sean, how clean is Scott's plate?
I feel like I'm on the hot seat all of a sudden because I know he's probably going to hear this. Well, from my perspective, in my opinion, his plate, well, let me frame it by this. So the last 18 months, we moved softwares, we built a new facility, and we doubled the division. So, from 30,000 foot view, true visionary style, I would say his plate was clean enough that we were able to pull off all of those initiatives while I had the least amount of involvement in a day-to-day basis in our business anytime in the last 23 years. So, what he would tell you is that he cannot get to all the things that he wants to get to, but his bar is so high that I think he's got an adequate amount of blank space to support and manage. We've had 7 promotions in the last 18 months, which tells me that managers are supported enough that their direct reports are moving up. And so I think that's a good key indicator for how much time he's had to develop some of our HR. Marketing is an area where he too spends a fair amount of time. It's one of the last tasks that he and I have some overlap on because I am still involved in marketing. From my perspective, our marketing company does a great job with all the stuff we don't know how to do, but content always has to come from us. And our initiatives, our marketing initiatives are always going to be fed from us. So, I don't think he's probably spending 20% of his time, but we're definitely working together on that one still. And that has not escaped either one of our schedules. He has 3 direct reports. Our controller and our 2 division managers are his main direct reports. He doesn't really have, those 3 have everyone else reporting to them in the way that our team is set up. Our division managers act as both a sales manager and an ops manager for their divisions. And so he spends a fair amount of time supporting each of his direct reports because they have a lot of responsibility. And so he has a lot of blank space for that. He also helps support them by creating all the meeting formats, and they're responsible for them. But Scott is our Mr. Consistency with making sure that our meetings are happening on time and on agenda. He is able to connect with all of our employees through monthly team meetings. And I think he does a really good job. He has really excelled in, you think about a football coach in the NFL. Scott has really honed his experience in coaching outside of work to bringing it inside work, and does a really, really nice job pulling everybody together. And so, those are some of the things that I think he has enough white space for. He would tell you that there are 30 other processes that haven't been worked on, and that there's 15% more in the software that we could dig into that he hasn't had a chance to do. And all of these things are probably true, and they are true. But I feel like he's doing a good job, and he has an adequate amount of space. So, we had 2 acquisitions this past year that put him more in the weeds than anything else we've done, because no one really had the bandwidth to take on that in the middle of the season, and he did. And so I'm very
these
thankful.
were not long planned acquisitions. These were opportunity. Grab that fish, bring it into the boat. Here you go, Scott. Time to clean the fish.
Yeah. One was had a little bit of forewarning. The second one had none. We had 2 weeks to say yes or no, and Visionary said yes, and he made it work. And I think that was good. So if that's any indicator to what he has on his plate, we were able to pull that off successfully. We have lost less than 5% in either one of those acquisitions in clients, which to me means he got an A+. He did a really good job in both of those acquisitions.
But that's because his plate was cleared up. So there's something to think about. There's the today and there's the future. And 5 might be fine for today, but if you want to handle those surprises, how clear does your plate need to be? Sidebar discussion.
Yeah.
So Des, how honest can you be with Ivan? 0 to 100%.
Oh, I'd say probably 99%. I don't hold, and that's that. I don't hold much back from him. We have a very honest relationship.
Do you guys ever yell at each other with the closed doors? Doors closed?
We don't yell at each other. No, we used to butt heads a bit more. For sure, there used to be a bit more tension and more in leadership meetings, maybe a little more butting heads. But nowadays, no, we don't yell at each other. We have a pretty good understanding of each other at this point.
And you run the leadership meeting, I assume.
I do, yes.
Do they ever look at you as mom and dad?
Oh, I'm sure at some point it probably was perceived like that. But I think actually you helped us kind of get over that hump of where we were showing our attention a little bit more to the leadership team.
Yeah.
And that's something we've moved well past at this point, which is nice.
Yeah. How much do you think Ivan trusts you? 0 to 100%.
I know he trusts me a lot. I don't think it's 100, just given the nature of some of the things he's been through, but I'd say probably 95%. There's not much that he, I can't think of a decision I made that he didn't really think was the right one. I think because I understand him and the vision and kind of where we're going so well that it makes it easy for me to make the decisions that he would make himself if I weren't here or.
Yeah. Well, Sean, let me ask you the same. How honest do you think you and Scott are with each other?
Very honest. One of the benefits of having Scott have left the company and come back is that if there were any elephants left, they're gone now, right? We were able to have frank discussion. What's the phrase? If you love something, you let it go, and if it loves you back, they come back, right? So it's not love in that type of way, but certainly there's enough trust there that we both found ourselves working together again, and so there's mutual respect and trust both directions. I'd say 100% both ways. There's rarely a time that he or I, if there's a problem in the business and he texts me or calls me, those phone calls or those texts are 2 seconds long because we're on the same page. There is rarely a time where he heard something differently than I did. Sometimes we skip over the issue and we just go right to the solution in our conversation because we're already thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
And over the last 2 years, enough of those occurrences has taken place that I don't even question it. If he makes a decision, I know that he's thought it through and I trust his judgment. And honestly, if he makes a mistake, so do I. So who cares?
So what's your percentage of trust of him?
100%.
I think Sting sang a song about if you love someone, set them free.
Yeah.
That could be your theme song with Scott.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe.
So, why not, right? So what's the challenge you've run up against, Desiree, now that you've become the fully trusted second in command, or at least initially when you got up into that role? What was one of the first challenges you had to overcome?
So I would say implementing EOS and we used an implementer for the beginning, but then I took over and was fully implementing it myself, and not just like running the meetings, but I'm talking implementing EOS. So the org chart, the direct report meetings, the departmental L10 meetings, like getting that from where we were at on the leadership team to down to production, that was challenging because we were changing. I mean, this company, it really just didn't have much structure at all. So we were taking this, unstructured to this very structured. This is how things, these are some new things we're doing. Definitely lost some people along the way, they were promoted to another company. It was good losses for us. But that changing the whole way the company is organized and operates, that was for sure a challenge. And then also just transitioning through that, having not been here as long as a lot of people, just brought its own challenges.
So you have two challenges from what I see, or two kind of yin and yang challenges. One is being people's bosses where you weren't before. And then now you're bringing on some heavier hitters, and you've got like new culture, old culture, and you've got to wrestle with that.
Yes.
How's that going?
So right now things are great. But you're right. We're bringing in some new people, some higher level managers, people with different backgrounds, and it for sure shakes things up a little bit when you bring in someone with new ideas, especially someone where like Ivan and I, like we go fast and we push and we're always doing something and then we're on to the next thing. And so we tend to move really fast. And so then bringing other people in who really are operating on the same level as us, as far as that stuff goes, just goal setting and just moving forward, is different. Like it's different for me. I obviously, like everyone here, in the roles they're in, like they're here for a reason, but bringing in these new, like we just hired a sales manager and she comes from a background of very different, she came from, the cell phone world and she was there for 20 years. And, so just a very different perspective, which has been honestly, now that she's more integrated, it's going really well, but it was bumpy. It was for sure bumpy, for a little bit. And we had to have a real put it all on the table conversation as a leadership team, which everyone put it on the table, like whatever it was. And we left it there and we moved forward and we were able to work through, some of those issues that came up from shaking up our leadership team and shaking up, the company, really.
So you mentioned you're going to bring on an operations manager, somebody, let's just assume it, operating at a higher altitude, higher speed. What kind of bumps do you foresee happening there? What's your plan?
So I foresee similar bumps, especially where he or she will end up, with our production managers and our fleet and facility manager. That's where they really are missing some of the structure that we have maybe in other departments. And so I think it will possibly be more challenging than bringing on the sales manager, honestly, if not just as challenging. But now I feel much more prepared, having been through this hire and this onboarding and seeing the difference, depending on the type of person you're bringing in. So I know it will be challenging, but I'm much more prepared for it this time, I think.
That's good. Ivan remarked to me a couple weeks ago, or maybe a couple months ago, he's like, we brought in the sales manager and everybody was up in arms on how, I don't know what the word was, pushy or, whatever the word was, that she was. And Ivan's like, no, it's just that I was your boss and I was a bit of a pushover. You never had accountability until you had a real boss. And so I thought that was a great perspective.
It was a real wake up for our sales team for sure. And for Ivan, to see what that looks like when there's someone in there really digging in and really, that was definitely interesting to see them go through that transition.
And so are you seeing your sales team stepping up to the accountability, rising up to the challenge?
So, I mean, one of our salespeople is he's on his way out. He's only got about a year left and he's retiring. We actually are in the process of hiring 2 more salespeople. One of them starts next week, and then the other one will start, I think, a couple weeks after that. So we're kind of trying to fill some holes we have in our current sales team. But yeah, it's changed the whole way they operate. So they're still here.
That's good. So, Sean, you kind of explained the biggest challenge for Scott, which was just his growth curve of leaving the company and then coming back. But when he came back, what's one challenge you saw him have to overcome?
I can relate to the sales manager story that Des just told, because for us, it wasn't a sales manager that he brought in. It was a lack of mid-level management that I had built. And so when we started to, I think Scott was pretty quiet for 6 months. He didn't really make any personnel changes. He just observed what was happening and who was doing what. And my design and build department was staffed appropriately. I'm a design and build guy, but my maintenance department was lacking leadership, was lacking account management skills. We had the wrong people in the wrong seats. We had a lot of legacy employees on the maintenance side, people that have just been around for a long time, and they got either promoted too quickly or promoted at all. Would have been probably something that, from his perspective. And so he had to make a lot early on. He had to make a lot of personnel changes. And for those who remained in the company and had been around, 12 or 13 years, to see some of their coworkers who had hired in at the same time and experienced the first rush of growth that we all had together, a decade earlier, it was a little unnerving. I think a lot of people thought, wow, when am I next? And it was very reminiscent of the way things used to be, where I was good cop and he was bad cop. And in reality, the good cop let bad behavior go too long. And it wasn't really him being the jerk. It was me not supporting people and keeping it real. And so by being a nice guy, it ultimately cost a lot of people their jobs because it was too late for them. They hadn't received the training and they didn't grow with the company. And so we really had to hire. And I think that was probably, and I say that like it was past tense, where we still have a little bit to go. We're still doing a little bit of that, but I can tell you that every time we made a change, it has been an amazing lift. Jeffrey, you always use the analogy of a hot air balloon and you cut the sandbags off and the whole team rises. That's happened every time. So I think his instincts as to who and where and what to change have been spot on, and it's been pretty cool to see. The reaction now is totally different than when he started. The biggest challenge initially was getting people to buy in and not feel like our mission as a business was being sacrificed. We have a people first, an opportunity minded company where we want to only promote from within and grow people. So it was a big challenge. How do we promote from within, but we haven't supported the talent? And now we're breathing life back into that. And so I think that was the biggest challenge that he faced, was staying true to our values and our mission while making some pretty tough choices.
Interesting. Let me pivot here. You guys are both in our second in command peer group. Des, you as a member, and Sean as the leader. So how has it helped you in your journey to becoming a better second in command and obviously getting better results in your company? Just like maybe one anecdote or one thought.
So One thing I love about the peer group is the ability to just shoot out a message, a question, or anything to try and get you get several people's feedback. So whether you're looking for a process or a job description or it's a really good to have just a network where you can just consult people about things. The other thing is I was briefly involved in the owner's peer group with Ivan. And what's different about the second in command peer group is that you can talk about the owner. The owner's not there. So sharing those challenges that, I feel very fortunate. I've been through a lot of the challenges with Ivan and we've come out on the other side, but I relate to a lot of things people are going through now in the second in command peer group. People I feel like are at all different stages of where they're at in their either development or they're transitioning into their role. So having that outlet of people who, aren't owners to talk about those issues that really you don't have many people you can talk to about those things, those specific things.
Right. You could talk to Ivan a little bit, but hey, your job's to solve them for the most part. You can't really talk down. You're kind of stuck in the middle there, Des.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Sean, from your perspective, managing this whole group, right, since the beginning, starting it up, and we've kind of been evolving it over these first couple of years. What's one way you've seen the group, besides what Des just mentioned, and she probably got the low-hanging fruit there. What's one other way you've seen the group have an impact, maybe even in a way that surprised you?
Well, I think we're starting to turn that corner now. Crucial Conversations has been a hot topic, and it's one that I think initially was kind of a non-starter. A lot of people, at least the sense that I got, was that a lot of people had moves that they knew needed to be made with personnel, and they were kind of apprehensive to make those moves, and they were just hoping and looking for ways that a system could outflank the wrong person. And I believe that the majority are starting to find their voice and like, you know what? It's not me. It's not the system. It's the wrong person. And I'm willing to advocate for it now. And, I don't want to say we're 100% because we're not. And we just met yesterday. So I'm really thinking about things that were discussed yesterday. But I think people at least have the clarity now. Now, what they do with it is, sort of an ongoing task of what we're working on in the peer group. But I think the realization that having the right people in the right seats and having the white space to manage those people and to coach them up or out is a big realization for the group. Because I think a lot of people had what Des described of her early days in the 2IC role of just trying to be kind of the be all end all catch all for the owner, which is great for a period, but long term, you really do need the time to coach people up and out and keep the organization healthy. And so I think in a nutshell, our members are starting to find their voice, and whether or not they have all of the leverage they need, they're definitely finding the right allocation of their time as it relates to people and what they can do about it. And I think that's pretty powerful, something I'm looking to double down on in subsequent years.
Yeah. I think we found out after year one that you need to be managing at least 5 million, because that's one of those growth stages that once you get to 5 and beyond, now you have a real organization. And so now we just take on members into this specific group, the second in command group, that have a portfolio of that complexity, right? And I think that's been really important. We are inviting outside people into this group, so it's not just for our owners within our peer group community, but we're willing to open it up to outsiders. And we've gotten some great people from the outside. So I think that's added nice energy. Sort of a final question for you guys, and then I'll let you riff on any final advice you might have. But Des and Sean, what's a message you would each give to the seconds in command listening, Des, and Sean, the CEOs listening? What's a piece of advice you would give to help them in their role with their counterpart? So, Des, why don't you start? What's advice you'd give to a second in command listening on how? Yeah, what's advice you'd give them?
Oh, it's a great question. I would say make sure you're getting what you need. So if you feel like you're not getting what you need from the owner, like to fully do what you need to do, then you need to selfishly make sure that they are giving you what you need, whether it's coaching or just the time, the meeting. In the beginning with Ivan and I, he'd be late for direct reports, or he was, just a little loose on things. And, I was not, being, the nature of the second in command. I was 5 minutes early and all that. So just really holding him accountable, holding the owner accountable. Like they need to be held accountable too. And he appreciates it. It's not like we have a very good relationship, and it came from, he had to be held to the fire. And so that's what I would say. Make sure you're getting what you need, hold them accountable to give you what you need, because that's what's going to get you to where you want to be and where ultimately your organization needs you to be to fully operate in your role.
That's awesome. That's great. Sean, what advice would you give to a CEO or owner listening to help them improve in their relationship?
I mean, the most blaring to me is don't hire someone if you don't intend to listen to their ideas and let them execute. It seems like such a simplistic thing, but again, drawing on some of the discussions that we've had a few members, unfortunately, that their owner put them in a position to run things, but they can't actually make any decisions. And so if you're not willing to delegate the ability to hire and fire and make financial decisions, you probably don't have the right person, or you as an owner aren't quite ready to actually have a second in command, because you have to be in a position where you trust someone else's judgment. And, likely if you've done it right, that person has a clearer vision for how to execute what you want. And so if you're not being honest and you're not being clear with where you're trying to be, it's really hard for that person. And then if you're not listening to them when they tell you what steps need to be taken in order to execute your vision, then it's just not going to work. And it doesn't matter how much training, or even if they are the right person and you don't listen, it's not going to work. So,
wow. Two great thoughts from both you guys. Sean, you recently interviewed a woman as a potential outside member, and you decided, no, she wasn't ready yet. Without giving away her name, do you want to explain what happened there?
Well, we had a brief call, and very intelligent, confident person. But, what I heard was the owner hadn't let go of the purse strings. So while they're in charge of the budget, they didn't have the right to allocate CapEx or to hire a key position. The infrastructure beneath them wasn't fully built out. And in my mind, that means that they don't have that white space that we talked about earlier today to grow people and to coach people. And so I think it's a very limiting situation when you're kind of the catch-all, but you can't really do anything. It's really still the owner calling the shots in that scenario. And so I'd rather help build the infrastructure and coach up the second in command to where they're able to run things and keep our group stacked with folks that can move the initiatives forward.
Move fast and break things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I believe you recommended to her, hey, we should just be coaching one-on-one. And so sometimes we'll get somebody in, we're like, no, you, and this happens a lot. They want one thing, maybe the peer group, but you realize, no, they need hands-on help first. What's one benefit you've seen Ivan make or gain from being, originally in this owner's peer group that he's been in?
Oh my gosh. A lot. I feel like the owner's peer group has been very, very beneficial for him. It's hard to pick one thing. I think having the network of people to where he doesn't feel alone, to where he can go and he can vent, he can, kind of in the same way that I feel I now have like the second in commands where he has the owners to go and he can talk about me, he can talk, and he can bounce things off of people. I think that it has given him, because he was always in an EO group and things like that, but being industry specific, in my opinion, is so important because the challenges are just different. Their challenges are different from industry to industry, but I feel like especially in this industry, having a network of people within the industry, especially I feel people are very willing to share in this industry. I guess I don't know a ton about others, but I just feel like it is a place where people want to tell you how they do things. They want to tell you, what worked for them, what didn't work for them. So I think for him, just having that, not feeling alone, and especially through this growth period we've had, because we've grown a lot in the last few years, to where it presented more challenges for him that he didn't, having you, Jeffrey, obviously as a consultant, but also the peer group, I think has helped him through a lot of points where he's gotten stuck.
Does it keep junk from flowing onto your plate? Meaning, does it stop him from always calling you up? Like, does he now come to you with fewer, more reasoned ideas?
For sure. Yeah. He, I think has maybe toned it down a bit where, we always say he has all the crazy ideas. And he's also recognizing more now the value of my time as well, to where I feel like there was for sure a point in time where I was a catch-all, not just from him, but everywhere. I mean, wherever in the company that something needed to be caught. So, yeah, I think it helps him. It maybe tampers back before he has a chance to, spew too much.
Spew. I was thinking of a different word, but we're going to go with spew.
A bit of a filter.
Yeah. So I really appreciate both you guys' time. This has gone way better than I even thought. Sean, a final idea you have to share with the audience?
It's just related to delegating and trusting. What I see from my experience in this peer group and owners groups and in my experience with coaching and just being in a peer group myself is that the companies that move the farthest, the fastest, pivot well. They're not afraid to take action. Even if the action doesn't work, the ability or the muscle, the habit to pivot and pivot again is a greater skill than making all the right choices. And so if you're thinking about promoting someone or leaning on someone to lead your business, and you think about idea creation as step one and integration of the ideas as step two, and the thing that's got you scared about moving off a go is like, what if it doesn't work? It doesn't matter. From what I can see, the companies that succeed, if something doesn't work, they just try a different way. The goal doesn't change, but the strategy does. And so through that lens, then really you're looking for a partner who's willing to pivot with you and try. And so in our company, we say that we either win or we learn. There is no failure, right? We're going to learn or we're going to win. And so I think that makes the whole 2IC proposition a lot stronger when you think of it in that way. And so I would just encourage anybody to prepare to win or learn.
Yeah, that was excellent. Desiree, sorry you have to follow that up, but I know you can have your own great final thought.
So I think my final thought would be for the owners, which is if you have a second in command, just the value in empowering that person to, the most valuable thing I think Ivan gave me was feeling fully empowered to do what I need to do or what I feel like needs to be done. I think letting go and just letting that person, assuming it's the right person, fail if they do, but making mistakes, like it happens, but making them feel empowered to where that's okay. It's okay if you make a mistake, but I trust you and I know, so I think that is what I would tell the owners. Just empower that person and you are going to benefit from it. As an owner, I feel like that's what I got.
Listen, if you're listening and you're a second in command and you want to learn more about this group, email us or email me, jeff@jeffreyscott.biz. If you're an owner and want to consider joining one of our peer groups for owners, email me as well. We have over $500 million in revenue represented in all of our groups. It's a pretty massive number, which makes me proud because that really it's a knowledge base. We've built like this knowledge base, and when you come into the community, you're getting smarter by talking to one person, another person. But really, we have a lot of corporate learning, if you will, community learning that helps everybody accelerate towards their goals. So Des, Sean, again, thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.